My name is Isaiah Smith. I'm the Horticulture Operations Supervisor at the Cheyenne Botanic Gardens. I've been with the Cheyenne Botanic Gardens for about 8 years now. I started as an intern. I've done about every horticulture position we have, so they decided that I should be in charge of doing the rest of it, which is scary to think about. I originally moved up here, like Donna said, from Birmingham, Alabama, which is easy to think of in comparison to Cheyenne. It's the exact opposite. There's 9 months of summer there. It always rains. The wind never blows. We're out here, exact opposite, 9 months of winter. It never rains and the wind always blows. But same kind of processes of we undergo in any part of the U.S., any part of the world to start plants from seeds. Today we're specifically going to talk about vegetable plants, vegetable seeds. So why might we want to start our vegetables from seeds? Talking to the room, what are some ideas? It's cheaper perhaps to start from seed. What else? Control, in what way? Yeah, we can have more than one crop. We could do some succession planting. Availability, you buy exactly what you want. Your variety selection is usually a little better. Cost, yes, it's usually cheaper to buy seed because they're cheap. You can buy a packet of carrot seeds for like $5 for 1,000 versus buying carrots. Can't buy carrot starts for one reason. Well, like you can for tomatoes and peppers. Availability, there's more varieties available in seed than there is physically, just because of economics. Efficacy, sometimes things do better from seed than they do from a start. Once again, with carrots, there's a reason we don't buy carrot starts. Timing, you can be specific. No matter what, Lowe's, Home Depot, Walmart is going to sell you a plant at the absolute wrong time of the year. They're going to be late, they're going to be early, they're not watching the weather like you are. Depending on what kind of structures you have, if you're here in the talk before, having any kind of cold season extenders, you're going to have a different schedule than somebody that's using just the ground outside, or if you're using both, you have 2 different crop cycles. And enjoyment, you know, we're all gardeners, we all enjoy taking that tiny little bitty thing, getting it all the way to a fruit or to a root, and really enjoying that harvest. So some quick facts. Is most everybody here from Cheyenne? Show of hands, close by? Okay, because most of this should be pretty applicable. Our average last frost, that is usually, keyword usually, the last time we should have a heavy to moderate frost. May 20th, that doesn't mean a light frost or, you know, that random hail event we always have around Mother's Day or a snow in June. Just generally, May 20th is when we can kind of get started. September 20th is when we can expect that to start happening again more regularly. That gives us about 120-day growing season frost to frost outdoors. Usually, it's never that. We tend to recommend people Memorial Day to Labor Day. It's a little easier to remember. That drops us to about 100 days because we know outside of May 20th, September 20th, we're going to have some kind of an issue. My first year here, 2017, I was coming from Alabama, end of May 28th or something like that. It was 80 degrees in Alabama. It was 80% humidity. Summer, classically. I got here, and the day before I got here, my host family emailed me of like, we can't wait to see you. It's going to be wonderful. You have a great summer. By the way, we got 14 inches of snow yesterday. So what does that mean? It's May. How do you have snow in May? I've learned a lot since I moved here. But the next day, it was beautiful. It was, you know, back up in the 50s to 60s, the snow had melted. It had done all the damage it was going to do. And if you had started your crops, you're starting right back over. So we say Memorial Day to Labor Day, and then also bear with it. 14 inches of precipitation annually. Usually that comes for us in the spring snow. March to May is when we're going to get the most precipitation, usually in the form of snow. Rule of thumb for most snow, every inch of snow is about 0.1% water by mass. So if we get 1 inch of snow, we got 1/10 of an inch of water, which is not a whole lot. We're mainly getting it during our spring, which is not our active growing season, so we're going to need to supplement water in some way. And then for any warm season vegetable, tomatoes, peppers, eggplant, squash, cucumber, things like that, we go ahead and say add another 2 weeks to whatever it says on the packet or the catalog. Because of our nighttime temperatures, we cool off at night, which kind of like stops and starts that clock of growing for that plant. So even though you may have a 100-day tomato, it's going to take more than 100 days for us, usually because of our nighttime temperatures. This here is a table of our average temperatures, and you can see our shoulder seasons, May, September, pretty cool. We're having a big degree difference at night all throughout the season, somewhere between 20 and 30 degrees every day of night. We're going to get up to, I don't have a clicker, 80 degrees usually in July, and we can get around 60 at night. That's why we recommend that 20 day added is because we're stopping and starting that clock really quickly. Like we said, during the growing season, our average precipitation is pretty much nothing, 2 inches per month. It wasn't like that last year. The year before that, it was probably double that. So you have to plan on doing some more work for us. Average snowfall, 2 inches in May, 1 inch in September, and we know there's always a chance every day of the year to have it. But this doesn't account for extreme lows or extreme highs. Hail events. Cheyenne, we title ourselves as one of the #1 cities. Somewhere between 8 and 10 events a year. An event could be nothing, or it could be season wrecking, buy a new roof, buy a new car, things like that. Plants don't really like that a whole lot, especially vegetable plants. So we've decided we're going to buy seeds. Where do we buy seeds from as a group? Where do you buy your seeds? Catalog, order them. Does anybody go to Walmart, Lowe's, Home Depot and pick up their seeds from there? Yeah, a few? Garden shops, local sources. So there's a couple ones. I tend to buy online or through catalog, mainly because the variety is better. I can really mix and match. I don't have to hope that Lowe's has that carrot that I really, really like, or that tomato that I know works for me. So these are some of my top ones that I prefer to use, and there's different reasons why. Territorial Seed Company, based out of Oregon. I think they're near Eugene. Their average last frost is May 12th, first frost is September 15th. Close to what we recommend. So their varieties, when they say cold hardy, talking about themselves, pretty similar to us. A lot of short season varieties as well. Great, good use for us. A lot of applicable, obviously. Oregon gets something called rain. We don't, so we have to adjust for that. Johnny's Selected Seeds, very, very popular. They're based out of Maine. They have a little bit longer of a season, but what I like about them is that they have a lot of varieties and they have a lot of differences in the exact same thing. If you're going to grow a Nantes type carrot, which is good for our area, and you want one to be 1 week longer than you normally buy, they've got it for you. They've got everything you could need for like small market growing, many varieties of a same crop to really like fine tune getting something out to a farmer's market or to a store as early as possible. Harvest Seeds we use every so often. They're up in Rochester, New York. They just have a lot of variety every year, not always the same thing, but new and interesting things. True Leaf Market I've been using a little bit more. They're out of Salt Lake City. I like them because they recently acquired Kitazawa Seeds and Mountain Valley. Kitazawa Seeds is an Asian seed market that was acquired. Really nice. A lot of Asian seeds are similar season to this area of the country. Cool nights, warm days, short season. They've done really well, and interesting varieties too, something fun. Mountain Valley Seed, I think, is also Salt Lake City based, and they just absorbed them, so similar conditions throughout the summer to what they're used to. Lots of variety in heirlooms, so if you're really specific of you're only gonna grow heirloom, you're gonna save your seeds every year, I like them for that. We know where we're buying our seeds from now, but how exactly do we interpret that catalog? There's a lot of information packed into that. And normally it's gonna look something like this. If you're lucky if you get a picture, because if it's a really big one, they're just throwing all of it at you. So we have a variety name. Usually it's listed by the vegetable itself. So we're in the carrot page. This is the Merida carrot. It's going to tell you what kind of seed type it is. There's different types of seeds. Depending on what kind of supplier or what kind of grower you are, you may pay attention to this or not. Usually they're listed as the following. F1/HB means that it is a hybrid. OP to heirloom, it's open pollinated or it's heirloom. Or it's organic seed, organic big O, which means that it has that like USDA, FDA following, that they do all these different things. And F1 is a first generation hybrid. You have taken parent 1 and parent 2, paired them together, and you get maybe Merida. And you can only do that once. You can't save that seed and get the exact same thing. You have to always do that specific cross. So saving this seed, you can do. Sometimes they're infertile, so they may not set seed, or the seed you get is going to be completely different. So if you're looking to save seed, don't look for hybrids or F1. Look for OP or heirloom. Open pollinated means that they will pollinate with whatever else is out there, and they should come back similar to type, not so much true. Even heirlooms are not always true to type. They're going to be very, very close to type. As you collect heirlooms year after year in Cheyenne, you're going to select an heirloom that is better for Cheyenne. A Cherokee purple tomato that has been cultivated in Cheyenne for 20 years will be different than a Cherokee Purple that was cultivated in South California for 20 years. They're going to be very, very close, but maybe the hardiness is a little bit different. They've got a little bit more drought resistance because we're selecting better ones. And then organic can be a combination of either of the two, hybrids or heirloom. Usually they're going to be open pollinated for the most part, and organic, big O organic, just means that they have that USDA, FDA rating that the input into that seed crop meets that requirement. And it's particular to you if not. Usually it's listed immediately after the seed name, so you know what it is. Sometimes it's paired up with the seed name. Days to harvest. This is for both direct sowing or transplant. When I say that, because if you transplant a tomato seed that you've been growing for maybe 2 months inside your house, that day starts the day you put it in the garden, not the day you started it in the house. Even though you've been doing it for 20 to 60 days on the windowsill, day one is when it's out in the garden or out in the final location, and then we count from there. Same with direct seeding if we're doing root crops or something like that, that many days. And that's when you should expect to get the product off of that thing. So greens usually are much quicker than anything else. Roots can be quick, but it's those fruiting crops or warm season crops that take a long day, which is when we recommend adding 20 days. This is what we're talking about. This says an 80-day carrot. Carrots are going to be fine. We know we don't really need to add a whole lot a day, but if this was a tomato, I would totally add some more time to this. Some symbols. Every catalog is going to have some quick and easy symbols so you can look at it and tell if it's what you want. These left to right this is a territorial seed catalog. It's a cold hardy variety. I like to look for that because I know I'm going to get maybe a few more days out of it. It's a dual season variety, which means that I can plant it spring and fall. Usually they're short seasons. You can do it on the shoulder and I can get multiple harvests. I don't just have to have carrots in the spring, I can also have them in the fall. And then a taste test favorite, that just means that territorial, the company says this is a good one, we really like it. Some informative text, usually it kind of tells you, if you have no idea what a carrot is, it may give you a little bit description of a carrot. Sometimes color, flavor, maybe size, or just some fun facts. This one, at the very bottom, a carrot juicer's dream, so it's got a little bit more water content, so if you're looking for that versus something that stores. And then how you can buy that seed. Here we have 3 different options of purchasing. We have the organic availability, once again, the big O. Pelleted. Pelleted is great for those teeny tiny seeds. There's usually an inert material, sometimes a colored clay, put around it so it's easy to see, it's easy to pick up. And if you're doing rows, it's easy to see where you're putting it. Or seed tape. It's that kind of like fabric-y tape that it comes out and you don't even have to measure it, you just stick it in the ground. 3 different ways to purchase it. Just makes it easier for you to understand your costs going into it. Any questions on that? The question was, can pelleted seeds be saved year from year? They absolutely can. You just have to be more aware of humidity because it is a usually water-soluble coating. So if you get it wet, it's going to start to dissolve that coating. The seed should still be fine, but your color or your inert material will disappear. But you totally can, 100%. Or maybe you buy seed packets in a store, you pick them up locally, and they're going to have a similar set of information packed into a different way. This is our front and our back of a seed packet. Same thing, crop and variety name. Usually it has a picture. Days to harvest, usually on the front as well. Informative text. We can see under our crop and variety name that we also have that F1 designation following the name, but it's also repeated back over here on the back of our packet. Growing information is nice, but I tend to follow local stuff versus this. This is Ferry Morse, and they're based out of Massachusetts. They have some general growing information. They have this handy-dandy little map that, they probably don't know where Cheyenne is on. And it just is blanket, it's up north somewhere. Follow some local information better. And seed packets will almost always have an expiration date on it. Even if you buy from a catalog, it will have that expiration date. As with any expiration date in the grocery store you buy, it is a suggested date of when they will more or less warranty that seed based upon, and they don't have it on here, but usually on a seed packet, it'll also have a percentage of germination. Somewhere between 70 to 100 is usual, depending on the variety, and that's what that seed or that expiration date is, that if it sells it to you as 88% germination, on this one was packed in 22, that's what they'll guarantee it. As you go year after year of saving it, you're going to lose some efficacy. Depending on how you store it and what the variety is how fast that goes down. Seeds can be kept almost indefinitely depending on what they are. We find clay pots of beans out in the desert from 1,000 years ago Or, if it's an onion or a carrot, it's good for 2 years no matter what you do. Just knowing some of that info. To test for your seed efficacy from saving seed, I recommend doing kind of that trick we did in elementary school with a wet paper towel and a Ziploc bag. Take a even number of seeds. I like to do 10 because it's an even, easy math. Put 10 seeds of our tomatoes, our squash, maybe something that's not so valuable, like a carrot. Put that in there, wet paper towel, put it somewhere sunny. Don't get it too soaking wet, give it 2 weeks, and then count how many of those have germinated, and that is a general percentage. If 7 of your 10 seeds came up, 70%. So adjust accordingly. If it's somewhere below like 50%, I'll throw extra seed either into my packs I'm direct sowing or into the garden and then go from there. If it's like 25 or below, I buy a new seed. For germination, we need 3 things. Do we know what those 3 things are for seeds to germinate? Water, that's 1. Sun, light, 2. Temperature, yeah. Exactly what we're doing with that windowsill treatment. We need it to be slightly damp. We need some sunny conditions, and we put it on the windowsill because it's a little warmer. So we need heat, water, light. Depending on the seed, the variety, the crop, they're going to need different ratios of each. But if we hit it just right, we're going to have germination. So that seed has absorbed water, the seed coat has shed, cotyledon come out, we're off to the races. Depending on if it is a cool season or if it is a warm season, we need more or less heat. Light can be different. Sometimes seeds need to be completely covered. They want darkness. Sometimes they don't want to be covered. They want light. And then water is almost always the same. They want to be moist. They don't want to be dry. They don't want to be soaking wet. They want to be somewhere in between. I will show you what I do at my house. We have a gigantic greenhouse at the Botanic Gardens, which we can do whatever we want. It's super fancy. Not everybody has that, and I understand that. So I'm showing you what I do at the house. Usually you can buy these kits, any like home improvement, garden store, things like that, buy them online. You want to look for a few different things. Your bottom tray should have no holes because we're going to hold water. Some kind of a clear dome is great. That increases our relative humidity. It allows light in. And then some kind of a packet or packs for that plant to grow in. This can change depending on the manufacturer, the supplier, the year, and even like what crop you're using. If you're going to grow something that takes a long time to germinate or to grow and then transplant, you want a little bit bigger of a cell pack. If it's something that's going to quickly germinate and you're going to immediately get out in the garden, like greens, a smaller cell pack will be just fine. And also too, it'll take up your square footage. These are 40 cell packs, maybe more than that. So I can get 40 individual plants into about a 10 by 20 general area. We want the bottom flat to be waterproof because that's how we're going to water it. We're going to fill our flat with water so that when this seed packet sits in it, it's going to soak it up like a sponge. I like doing that because I do this on a desk in the front room and I don't have to worry about going and cleaning up water off of the desk because my wife will kill me. I just have to get a funnel and a cup and I fill up the bottom. It also gets it just the right amount of moisture. I don't have to worry about too much water, too little water. That soil will pull up as it needs it. You'll notice your dome will condensate. You'll have little bitty clouds inside of it. That's great. It's doing its job. It heats up and it cools off. So it should look like this when you're pretty much done. You can go a step further and get yourself some bottom mats. Usually these are like heating cables inside of some kind of like little plastic sleeve, and then some lights as well. Or you can throw them in the front room. South or east facing windows are best. That is where we get most of our light during the winter, and it's going to be the warmest during the day. I just do this because it's a little bit faster and it's controlled. I know that it's going to have bottom heat for 12 hours of the day and it's going to have light for 12 hours of the day. I don't have to hope the sun comes out today. Most of this is extremely cheap now. You can buy this online, you can buy this in stores. I bought the bottom mats for I think $20 for a pack of 2. They're the same size as my flat, so you can get them in almost any dimension. The question was, do I keep my heat mats on all the time? If I had a second clock, I might. I just leave them plugged in because this seed mat will keep it allegedly keeps it 10 degrees hotter than ambient temperature. So if I drop during the night, it should be warm.
So you leave it on all the time?
Yeah, for germination. So as soon as I see that cotyledon form, and then depending on what it is, I may move it off if it's a cool season crop or if it's a warm season crop. It's really just about getting it to germinate as fast as possible. I do turn the lights off. I have a timer for that, same thing that you get for like holiday lights. Usually if you buy the lights, it will come with it.
How long do you want your light on?
I do 12 on, 12 off. That seems to be pretty much just down the middle. Some crops may like it more, some may like it less. 12 is general because like I said, that's I think a 40 or higher cell count. So I'm doing more than one type of crop in there. So I'm trying to hit as broad as possible. There's a question over here. Your question is how do I schedule my light? So I do 12 on, 12 off, 12 hours on, 12 hours off, and I have it synced up at 7 to 7 because that way I can make sure my lights have come on before I head off to work and before I go to bed they've turned off. I don't link it up with outdoor lighting. We know that the days are going to stretch as we get closer to the summer and they're going to shrink as we get farther away. I'm trying to get stuff started early, so trying to get the maximum amount of time is what I'm looking for rather than a natural. Because when they go outside, they're going to sync up to that natural clock pretty quickly. My heat mats, like I said, I leave mine on because I'm lazy at the moment. If I had a second clock and some extra extension cords, I may put them on a timer as well. But if I'm really trying to get things to germinate as quick as possible, constant heat is more important than constant light. So how do we plant our seeds? We bought our seeds, we probably bought our setup, and now we need to know how to put them together. So if we're starting early, we have all of our components. We bought our seeds and we bought our pieces. We've tested them, plug them in. We make sure that the heat mat comes on. We make sure the lights come on. We make sure our clock works. Time correctly, like I said, 12 on, 12 off is pretty generic. I think most of them are going to recommend something like that. A good rule of thumb for your seeds is plant 2 to 3 times deep as they are big. So that means our bigger seeds go farther down in the soil. Our smaller seeds, we may not even put in the soil. We were just going to spread on top. Make sure there's good contact, even if it's that tiny, dusty little seed like carrots and onions, are super tiny. Spread them on the top and then just push them in a little bit so they have really good contact with that wet soil. Never let your seed flat dry out during germination. It's really key that it stays constantly moist, not wet, not dry, even. That's why I like the bottom watering system, is it pulls it in as it needs it. I just have to make sure that there's enough water in that reservoir, and that's a lot easier than getting out there with a can and wondering if it's going to be hot today or cold today and if I need to adjust. And most seeds are going to need cover. Like I said, most of them benefit from having a little bit of a top dressing or soil back over them. If you direct sow, it's going to recommend you do that anyway. There's very few plants that you direct sow and don't cover back up. A lot of that is that's how they move upwards. Plants have something called gravitropism, which means they're able to detect where gravity is. Their roots grow down, but they also have phototropism. They know where the sun is, so the leaves grow up towards the sun. If you're direct sowing, we're going outside. If we have some cool season crops, we have a high tunnel or anything like that, and we can go ahead and get outside. It's important that we have a clean, soft seed bed. Get out there. If you're going to do any amendments, anything into the soil, do that a couple of weeks before you plan on planting. Turn the soil either with a mechanical tiller or like a broad fork, something like that. And then make sure there's not any big clumps. Like I said, that carrot and onion seed is super, super tiny, and if it's right beside a really big clod of dirt and it gets lost, we've planted it too deep or it's too high up. I tend to hit it with a fork, go back with a rake and really break it up and then rake it out really nice and soft. I may pull out some rows and then cover them back up, but really you're trying to get the soil size particle to be similar to that seed particle size, so it's about even. Time correctly, putting it out too soon, it's not going to come up. Usually if it's a vegetable seed, they're going to figure it out anyway, so if you get out a week early and you're early on getting your plants out, it's going to come up correctly. You're kind of just wasting your time standing outside in the wind and the cold. Same rule of thumb, 2 to 3 times deep as the seed is big. Bigger seeds go deeper, smaller seeds are shallower. Still cover them, even just a little bit of the same soil the garden is made out of, or like with my seed packets that I do inside the house, I use something called vermiculite. It's a very light, fluffy thing. It's not really dirt, it's inert, there's no organic material in it, but it just helps keep good contact with the soil for that seed. And then if I do have to go water it, it doesn't blow it out everywhere. Same rule, keep the seed bed constantly moist. It's a lot harder outside to keep it even, so use some mulch. That can be any variety of things. There's organic mulches, inorganic mulches. Little O for organic, that just means that it will decompose into the soil, versus inorganic, it's a man-made thing, it's like plastic or something like that. I tend to use the organic mulches because then I don't have to go pull them up in the fall. I kind of let them go during the winter and I will turn them under. I use like straw and stuff like that. You'll still have it hanging around, But that helps modulate your transpiration or evaporation of that soil. We live somewhere where it is super windy. Wind will suck the water out of the soil, and that's why we mulch, is to kind of prevent that barrier. If you've done things wrong, they're gonna look like this right-hand picture. I did not push these seeds in, I did not cover them. You can see that root started growing and it actually lifted the seed up, and then our whole plant is on top of the soil, it's not gonna go in. I could probably transplant this and maybe get away with it, where if it was something, we want this to be happening below ground. The first part of germination is that radical emergence. It's gonna start heading south, and we want that to be below the ground so that when our hypocotyl or our cotyledons start to rise, they are above the soil, they're tucked in nice and neat. So this is why we cover it up, either with that little bit of vermiculite, the same soil we're planting in, or that garden soil, just to make sure it's tucked in really well and nice. We don't have to worry about like squishing those roots around. We can see there's very, very fine root hairs. They're gonna be damaged very easily if I get in there and start messing with it, so I wanna do it right the first time. And this is what that looks like. This is actually, I think, like some kind of native seed, because that's what I had at the moment in the greenhouse. But I top dressed with a little bit of sand. It's a drier soil mix. Still works for vegetables in the same way of my seed is below my top dressing, so when that root goes down and the cotyledon go up, it doesn't pull itself up out of the ground. Top dressing does not really matter of what it is, so long as you use a top dressing. Use the soil it's planted in, use a vermiculite, a sand, whatever, put something on top of the seed. And then yeah, you should start seeing this happening of, here on the left-hand side, we can see that radical is somewhere below the soil. Our cotyledon is expanding, that seed coat is gonna be shed, and our cotyledon are our first leaves. Are we familiar with that word back in like elementary school, and we never used it again? So cotyledon are what's inside of that seed. Usually they're packaged together kind of like this, and then they're gonna open up and our true leaves will emerge. This picture shows it really well. Cotyledon are almost always very simple, very fleshy, super round, like elementary school picture of a leaf. Where with this geranium, we kind of see what it should look like. It's a zonal geranium. We know it's gonna have two colors on it, and it has some dissected leaves. So then I know I'm really into business, because there's only enough energy in that cotyledon to get me to this point. And if I've done anything wrong, that seed will fail. So if I see true leaves, I'm off to the races and we're doing a good job. So the question is, how do I prepare the soil for the seed bed? If it's outdoors, yes, I'll water it because it's probably dried out completely during the winter. And I'll water it probably a day or two ahead of time so that water has time to evenly disperse. If it's an indoor setup, it's these little growing packs. I like to moisten the soil just so that if I do water it, it doesn't go everywhere. It's not super critical with this bottom watering method because I'm not introducing water to the top. It's gonna come into the bottom and it'll slowly pull it up. In the greenhouses at Botanic Gardens, we'll do about 50,000 annual seeds for city beds. That all gets top watered. That soil is moistened beforehand so I don't shoot it out everywhere, because that dry soil is very light and very soft, and that water droplet will shoot it out. Depending on how you're gonna water it is what I would recommend. It's a good idea and you're already there doing it, so throw a little bit of water. The texture you're looking for is you should be able to take that soil, squeeze it into a shape with your hand, but push your thumb to it and it falls apart really easily. If you squish it together in your hand and more water comes out than you thought you put into it, it's way too wet. And if that shape won't hold itself, it's way too dry. So you're kind of looking just to form up, almost like a Play-Doh or a clay or a cake batter, just to hold itself up, but easily fall apart. As your seedlings develop, if you're doing them indoors, you need to be aware of something called, like we said, that phototropism or etoliation. Plants are little bitty solar panels. They're gonna face the way towards the sun. I love this in the greenhouse because it just looks so cool if they always face to the south side for us. And if I just let them do nothing, they're all gonna have this really weird, like 45-degree tilt to them, and then I go put them out in the garden the opposite direction and it looks super funky. Rotate your flats, rotate your plants. I've noticed with those seed flats that have that light on top of them, they're gonna grow towards the light, even however bright it is. And so my next step is to then move my lights separate or rotate my flats in conjunction of your light. Yes. So the question was, seed starting soil usually does not have a whole lot of nutrition in it. That's true, but usually there's enough organic material for it to get going and to get started. You can use a light fertilizer, super watered down for seedlings, but usually between germination and transplanting, you don't need to fertilize super heavy, depending on the crop and depending on how long you're gonna have it. Greens and cole crops, I'm not doing any fertilizer before I put them out in the ground. Summer vegetables, tomatoes, stuff like that, I will fertilize because they're gonna stay in there longer. When we get ready to transplant, we wanna make sure we have enough roots to support that system. Something on the left is almost ready to be transplanted. It could have a few more roots, but it'd also be fine going outside. Here on the right, we should have transplanted this probably a year ago. You can see that we have that giant root in the middle is already circling the pot. If I don't do any of this and I just stick it out in the soil in that perfect little circle, it's going to continue to circle and girdle and go into really bad conditions. With vegetables, it's probably not as important as a perennial, but this tells me I timed it too wrong, that I should be more on this left-hand side of the picture of being a little bit faster. Something like that. We have just starting to see some of that circling. We have roots all the way throughout. It holds the shape very well, so that's good root growth. And then if we're gonna transplant or up pot, I tend to like the right-hand picture, a deeper pot rather than a wider pot. If we're transplanting early into a pot before we put it in the ground, our whole goal is root growth. I can care less how tall it is and how many leaves it has. I want roots, so when I put it out in the garden, it takes off. Get a deeper pot, don't get a wider pot. If we did that transplant or that hardening off of where we're gonna have a plant that needs to go outside, we can't just take it from super great, really hot and humid and full of light and then throw it outside in Wyoming because it sucks and they're all gonna die. We need to harden them off gradually. Start about 2 weeks before you wanna transplant that plant out and do it in a very small way. Start with a sheltered location where the wind does not blow super hard and it has a lot of shade. And then every day, move it gradually more and more out. You can either move it out from that space or take it out somewhere where the full sun is, the wind is gonna blow. Start with a little bit and then add on to it. Here, I would start with morning sun first. It has cooler temperatures because the sun has not heated up the earth yet. And it usually a little bit gentler of a light that hasn't had that full UV spectrum all day. And then move it out either into the sun for like an hour to begin with, 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours, and then leave it out. You want it to slightly wilt so that it knows that it's going to get rough. It helps also thicken up some of those cell walls, thicken up the root walls as well to get ready to undergo periodic watering rather than regular watering. And then once we get above 50 degrees at night, leave those plants out because they're about to be outside for the rest of their life, so they need to get used to it. This is the timing that I kind of use. This is rule of thumb. Obviously, if on April 15th there's 2 foot of snow outside, I'm probably not going to be sowing a whole lot of things. You can see that I have a few things bold and italicized as direct seed. Do not bother trying to start those indoors. You're wasting your time. Just put them outside. Most of those are root crops. So when we're transplanting, we're going to really damage the roots. And if we're trying to get one big giant carrot and we damage the root, it's not going to work out. Just put them outside. And usually they're more cold tolerant anyway than some of those leafy greens or those summer crops. So there's no reason to take up space indoors when they'll do just fine outside. But I like to start from seed. Leafy greens, anything you're going to make a salad out of, they do really well. They're very quick to germinate and they're very quick to be able to transplant. So somewhere between 2 to 4 weeks before I want them out in the garden, I'm going to get them going. And then I like them as well because I can get them out earlier than I can my warm season crops. Maybe I need to cover them up during the day, but they're able to go outside. Warm season vegetables, we have a very short growing season during the summer and we'll be able to get a jump start by starting those things off. I still have to keep in mind that days to harvest number, but this gets me my roots first, which is what's important. We're really trying to get as much root mass under the ground before that day starts ticking, because then it's really gonna jump up. If we try to direct seed tomatoes, we're gonna take maybe a month for that root growth to be the same as if we did it indoors. And then anything that's gonna be a long season, for the same reason of it's gonna take forever outdoors. Onions, we can start right now and we'll transplant them outside later. Brussels sprouts, you can start them indoors late spring so that we plant them out for the fall. Just because I have like a corner lot, I have a very limited amount of space I'm growing. And if I have Brussels sprouts that take like 6 months to get going, that's 6 months that I'm losing stuff on. Same with the onions, if I'm gonna try to get a couple of months indoors in a smaller space out of it. No root crops, don't do those. Just put them outside. This is kind of what I use to keep track of things, using that when to start plants, and then also I'll go off of that harvest date of I'm going to be starting my beets somewhere in the middle of April. I've noted that I'm going to direct sow them. They're going straight in the garden, and those beets said something like, for let's say 80 days, and I'll count out from that. That's June, middle of June is when those beets should be ready. I like to do this because it tells me what I need to be doing this week outside in the garden. It keeps me planned. I need organization or I get like lost. But it also tells me what I should be expecting for like space and room. I know in the middle of June, I'm gonna be freeing up some space because I'm harvesting beets. Or like someone else mentioned, I know that I can maybe get a couple of successive crops if I just do maybe a couple of rows of beets this week and then do it again in 2 weeks, and again in 2 weeks, I'll get a progressive harvest. Depending on how you're gonna use your produce, maybe you just want some weekly produce for your meals, or maybe you're gonna stock up and can all of your tomatoes for the winter. That'll depend on how you wanna do your succession cropping. I've got 2 minutes for questions. So the question is, between like cotyledon formation and true leaf formation, do I remove the dome? No. What I would do is I would remove it from bottom heat. Bottom heat is important for germination. But if it's a warm season crop, tomatoes, peppers, blah, 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 I'll keep that on bottom heat. I take the dome off after maybe 2 to 3 sets of true leaves. And kind of same thing of harden them off indoors the same way you would do outside, maybe take off for half a day or for a little bit, because you're gonna go from about 100% relative to humidity to whatever it is in your house, which is probably 50 or lower. And then if you go outside, it's probably closer to 20 or less. So kind of do it in stages because you don't want that really tender growth to get burnt or fried or just dried out really. So do I use a fan to prevent, some of those powdery mildews dampening off too much moisture? I try to time taking off that dome correctly. It's about, like I said, 2 to 3 sets of true leaves.
Okay.
And
so
then,
like that picture of the geranium.
So that was only one set because most plants are either opposite or alternate. I usually wait for, let's say, 4 to 6 leaves on that seedling, and that's when I'm going to start watching it. I also may stop putting less water in the reservoir so it's not sucking it up as fast, but you need to be careful about what's in your full tray, because if you have something that is off to the races and you have something that's taken too long, the one that's taken too long probably wants too much water, and the one that's ready to get transplanted wants less. So make sure your trays are of similar type. Don't try to mix your leafy greens and your tomatoes in the same pot. They need 2 different conditions. Try to balance it out. And I think that's time. Thank you, everybody.